dry as a bone. Do I have time for this? Eh, make the time. Maybe I get lucky and it'll come out easily. Alright, did my good deed for the day. I'll lean the other direction. There you go. I'll lean here. Get out of my... Get off my dead one. buried. Got an empty lot now. Parking lot. Barrier up. They had this thing all the scrap in place. They had a lot of like boards and stuff blocking the sidewalk. You see it in my other videos. Some of these developers don't give two shits. Construction guys, man, they know what they're supposed to be doing. They just cut corners. And if they're cutting corners in the construction of the house, you can imagine what kind of quality build you're getting. So as I go down Durango here, what am I going to see? Vacation Bible School already? When do you remember it? Yeah, I guess it was like the second week in June. I guess you're right. Then after Vacation Bible School, there was day camp. And at day camp, there was Boy Scout summer camps. I had a lot of busy summers. And when we were doing that, they were pretty small. And we had a lot to do. We were doing a lot. And in the downtime, there was tons and tons and tons of video games. And every year you'd play the best of the summer. The thing about that year, I got Super Mario Brothers 3, and we all just sat at the house. We had the guide from Nintendo Power, and it took about 2 or 3 months for us to pass that. I mean, without anybody can use warp whistles. We wanted, we thought, you know, programmer wasted his time putting this together. We didn't think like that. We were like, there's 7 levels, or 8 levels. Let's see what it's all about. And we went through every one of them. One of the more interesting and forgotten levels or worlds in Super Mario Bros. 3 is the pipe world. And they put a lot of effort into those level designs, and they're really cool looking. And the music was really on point. I remember there was one that was like a maze. You had to go down one pipe, and go to the other pipe, and then you go with this one pipe, trying to figure out how to get through it. All the different weird kinds of pipe monsters, like piranha plants and variations on them. And then there was the indestructible ones that just, all they did was munch, the black ones. And you had to hop in that special shoe to be able to walk on them. They even put little details like if you were wearing certain types of suits and you rescued the king, the king would say something funny. The one that was really hard to get was you had to get a hammer suit, and I can't remember what king it was, but the king, if he sees you in the hammer suit and you rescue him, he says, "Hey, how much do you want for that suit?" "Not for sale, huh? Too bad." What else happened in summer? One of the schools I went to, the teacher would come by in August and introduce him or herself, to talk to all the families. It was a private school, so you know, they could do that kind of thing. Trying to think of what else we were doing. Oh God. And then there were two-a-days. That was when I got to be a teenager. I hate two-a-days. For the uninitiated, that's 2 practices a day. You go up to I'd go up to TJ and I couldn't get somebody to drop me off, so sometimes I'd walk up there. And you'd have a morning practice. And then we'd take a break. And then there was an afternoon practice. And that was football. And the thing about 2-a-days that sucked is you couldn't put the, like, UIL rules prevented us from putting on the pads until the start of the school year. So you're running around there doing drills, conditioning, learning the playbook, more conditioning. Oh my God, there's so much conditioning. I think we could do weights. Come back after, like, because my problem was is I wasn't doing like the professional athletes where there's no off season. If I knew then what I know now, I would have been going up to TJ, because during the summer they would leave the gym open and you could sit there and lift weights, and I wouldn't do any of that. I was doing my summer thing, and I'd walk up there every day and I'd lift weights and I'd walk back home. I should have been doing that. But you know, I didn't know. I was thinking, well, that's too much working out. And I was like, not when you're 16 or 15 or 15, 16 or 17, it's fine. Don't get me wrong, I'm still glad that I played, you know, being an offensive lineman was a lot of fun. Being a defensive lineman wasn't too bad either. But I grew up in the era when running backs were the thing. You had Emmitt Smith, and you had Thurman Thomas, and you had Bananas Barry Foster, and you had Marshall Falk in Indianapolis. You had Jerome Bettis in LA. A lot of running backs. Natron Nemes in the Chargers. I don't know if anybody remembers the Natron bomb. The other day I was chatting on the thing, and I said it reminds me of Bernie Parmalee. Oh, it was Mr. Talkbox. Mr. Talkbox was talking about how he was working in different places and didn't get a shot. And the next thing you know, he's got an album coming out and he's gained, you know, popularity and fame. And he started out, he was I can't remember, he was a delivery driver or doing drywall or something like that, but he was he was not living the dream. Bernie Parmalee was a UPS driver. He had pretty much, you know, relegated himself to not being in football anymore. And the Dolphins gave him a tryout. Suddenly he was for 3 years he was the running game that the Dolphins were missing. They had Thunder Dan Marino, and he didn't need a running game. If Thunder Dan had any kind of mobility, he would have been right. Like, if Dan Marino had mobility like today's quarterback, he'd had multiple rings. Well, with Dan Marino, it just felt like the offense was one-dimensional. The funny thing was he was just ahead of his time. Anyway, he was stiff, he was immobile, but he had a quick release and he was accurate. Like even Tom Brady, people think he's a pocket passer. He was just he was a really good game manager, and he knew when to run. There were times like, well, there's nothing here, let's go ahead and get 7 yards. 7 yards becomes 15. Tom Brady didn't have any blazing 40 times, but he could move around in the pocket. Dan Marino was a brick. He had all those pads on, and he would hold on to the ball for a long period of time, and his lineman, he had a really good lineman. Sometimes I think, and that was the difference between Kurt Warner and Dan Marino. Similar style. Kurt Warner had a quick release. Kurt Warner was in a timing, the timing offense. They did a lot of slants, crosses, little pick routes. But Kurt Warner also had a running threat. Anyway. I could not tell you who today's NFL star was. It has been oh man. Now I'm just thinking I don't sit down and watch the Super Bowl. I haven't sat down and watched a 3-hour Super Bowl since 2007, since the Giants won their Super Bowl, that first Super Bowl. I remember when they beat the Patriots, the first one time they beat the Patriots. After that, I've usually just caught the highlights or heard stuff about it. Like I didn't see the Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl. I was looking at the ticker, and they were up 28-3, and I thought, this is over. And then they started nickel and diming. I said, what the hell is going on over there? So I'm always working when the Super Bowl's on. I kind of tune into it, calls come in. I have to turn off the thing and go watch the call. And I'm like, what the hell is going on there? I'm watching the fourth quarter, they're just slowly coming back. It was 17 at one point, 17-28. I was like, what the hell are the Falcons doing? Then there was one where they like passed 3 times in a row, and I was like, why aren't you running the ball? I was like, why aren't you killing the clock? I will say that about the Patriots, man. That team never quit. It was like they were going to play until the final whistle. And they went up against the Giants who had the same mentality. And so it came down to the wire. And whereas Tom Brady has skill, Eli Manning was always blessed with luck. He wiggled around in the pocket, and defense was coming after him. He throw a prayer up there, and all of a sudden there'd be a receiver to just answer his prayer. I guess about the only guy I know in today's NFL is, or that I've been watching closely, was Joe Burrow. Would love to see him win at least one Super Bowl in his lifetime. But in order to do that, you have to deal with the Bungles. And that is not fun. The Bengals, they're a great quarterback. I mean, they're basically great running backs. Well, they had Johnny Carter, who's a bust. You know, they have never really had they had Corey Dillon. And then they didn't appreciate him, so then he goes to the Patriots and gets him a couple rings. But yeah, there was another Carter It was like a KC card, not just a grounded Carter. There was another Carter in the backfield. But it wasn't like the Browns. The Browns had Tom Rathman, no, not Tom Rathman. They had touchdown Tommy Bardell and Leroy Horde. They had these big old fat backs that would just hit people. At one point they had Priest Holmes, all 230 pounds of them. Wow, that is really coming out. I was going to say they had Merrill Hodge. I think they had Merrill Hodge for a hot minute, and then he went to Pittsburgh. People were like, how do you remember Merrill Hodge? I was like, play Tecmo Bowl. The cool thing about Merrill Hodge was, I don't know what they call that. I think they call it toughness or something like that, but Merrill Hodge never went down on the first hit. So, if you needed 1 yard, Merrill Hodge was your guy. You pick him, you run through the thing, he'd tear off that one tackle, and then he would go through and get the yard. But if they knew your player, or they were really aggressive, you had to send about 3 or 4 guys against Merrill Hodge. Merrill Hodge doesn't go down with just one tackle. That's where I fell in love with Mosey Tatupu. I had played with the Patriots, and they sucked. Everything about them sucked. They had a fuck, but the only good receiver they had was a tight end who was hit or miss. The quarterback was, I think Stevens was I can't remember all the names. I think Stevens was the defensive tackle that was pretty good. And then they had Doc Golak. But before him they had another guy who I can't remember. He was so god awful. He got hurt, his backup quarterback hurt. I was out of my third string quarterback, and he had no arm to speak of. And that was when I had to lean on Mosey Tatupu. Mosey Tatupu was a Tecmo Bowl god. I mean, he never got hurt. Like I said, he was truckful. He was slow. But it didn't matter. I was guaranteed on the 3 yards every time with Mosey Tatupu. So I would do a lot of runs. And I leaned on him. I could only win 2 Super Bowls with the Patriots. One time I was trying to do the 3 feet, and they quit on me. I kid you not. I was in the last play of the Super Bowl. I had a shot, and these dudes just flat out quit on me. I was like, oh, come on. Tecmo Bowl has moments like that where I had one time with the Orioles Saints. I won 2 Super Bowls in a row. Coming down to my last Super Bowl, threw a pass. The receiver was wide open, and then all of a sudden this dude came out of nowhere and intercepted the pass, and I said, this game's cheap. I turned it off. I said, I'm done. Sometimes it's like that, man. You're playing it, and it was a weird thing. Like I said, if you had a perfect season, the game got harder and harder and harder. That was the thing about Midway, was it had adapted just 6 seconds. You put that ball in there and play the same way every season. The game says, I'm not going to let you get bored. Finally, everything got tough. Even field goals. Every kicking a field goal, some guy was busting the line, completely untouched. I was like, what the hell is going on here? The game was glitching weird ways, like the guy would jump up and it would make this weird whistle noise. And all of a sudden the animation would glitch. And sometimes it would be an incomplete pass, sometimes it would bounce off the guy, and then it would still be a catch. I was like, man, what is going on with the physics of this game? Defensive linemen would get insanely fast. Sometimes they would cover all my receivers, they would stick to them like glue, so I'd start running with the quarterback. So they got on me about that. I'm dodging linebackers, I'm dodging defensive linemen. I'm trying to make every yard count. Sometimes there'd be games where it's just a lot of punting. Punt. Okay, punt. Let's hold him, punt. Donald Cunningham was running the sweep for the umpteenth time. That's right, I know how to stop it. All of a sudden he would do some weird little juke move, and I was like, what the hell? The lineman that on the end, the tight end or the tackle that normally wouldn't get my guy, suddenly started holding my guy. I was like, what the hell? The Tecmo Super Bowl on NES and Tecmo Super Bowl on the Super Nintendo. To give you an idea how great those games are, they're still making updates to it to this day. Did they charge me? The rain is actually so loud I can't hear this. Anyway, they still update the rosters. Some people even try to tweak the game a little bit. But it's just that Tecmo Bowl. It's not... They didn't like if that's Tecmo Bowl 2, Tecmo Bowl 3, or the one that came out on the PlayStation, which I kind of like. But how sad is it that there are people who would rather play old Tecmo Bowl than what we got now than that? They got a whole simulation league that's still running off of NFL 2K4. Here I was worried that my gear wasn't going to get properly washed. Yep, okay, you did this. I've been waiting on gear. I was like, it's been medium for like 4 days. And I said, man, I know this thing's going to run out on me. And now they're saying charge me. I got about 30 minutes. I'm about 20 minutes away from home. People don't realize that the pith helmet, this has to be the greatest rain hat ever invented. And it makes total sense because the Brits came out with it. I want to say it's the greatest hat, but I can't get a hold of the Japanese one, the one the samurais used to wear. I'm pretty sure that the pointed hat that a lot of people in East Asia wear are pretty good too. Problem is I can't mount a camera on it. I guess the only other hat that's really, just about any hat that's carry a rain hat, like I can get a bowler. Maybe I can get one of those ones that the Mormons wear. I don't know what they call it, but it's a very plain but effective hat. A flat brim, flat top, round brim, all black, no frills. I go around wearing a Mormon hat in this area and people are just kind of like, oh, he's one of us. Clicking on that. The only thing I hate about it when it rains like this is trying to shed all my gear. I think there is a game out there now, it's called Tecmo Bowl Legends, and it has all the rosters from like when the game first came out in '89 all the way to like present times. It has all the old teams, the uniforms. That's different. Wow, it's flooding. Should probably report this. I'm going to keep walking through this until I figure out why this isn't draining properly. Actually, I need to go down this way. Once again, I think I bore witness to something I wasn't supposed to. I know I'm supposed to be. So there's a drain somewhere over here that's not. Oh, that thing's filled up. Yeah, I know. Charge you, baby. I know. I'm just trying to figure out why this isn't draining. What would be funny if those guys were. That was a group of guys trying to steal something, and I messed up there. I should go down this way, huh? There's no storm drain over here. Anyway, let's run back. Crazy. So the drain goes all the way back over there. I guess I should keep going. Well, the sidewalk ain't flooded. Six and a half miles away. I've been fortunate so far that I haven't. The strikes have been around me, but not next to me. You'd think I'd stop doing that, but I mean, I gotta walk, man. If I die walking, that's a good way to go out. Yeah, but struck by lightning? As far as I'm concerned, the lightning is the sidewalk to heaven. That was corny. I know. I like it. They don't have a erosion control barrier on that one, and yet the sidewalk is not filled with soot or sand. The other thing is I'm wearing these shoes, and they said that they're anti-slip, and that might be true. I wonder what kind of footage I'm going to get. Like, this thing says it's 4K, but it looks awful. And I think part of that is because like, it doesn't have motion smoothing. So I used the motion smoothing on Kden Live, and the motion smoothing on that just made everything outside of the camera, outside of the center of the camera lens, blurry. Kden Live uses the same kind of motion smoothing that the old Google thing did back in the day, and it just looks awful. Like, what happens is anything that's not in the center of the camera starts to wiggle. So you got streets wiggling, you got signs wiggling, light poles wiggling, and it looks trippy. That's so big. I'm just going to keep the shakiness in. My camera doesn't get here until Thursday, and I probably won't do my first footage until Monday because, you know, work. The joys of working a 12-hour shift is that you only get maybe an hour or two, because it's 12 hours, and then it's 1 hour for travel, 1 hour to eat a meal, because I eat one meal a day. So that gives me down to 2 hours, and that one of those 2 hours is probably prepping, getting ready to go to work, getting dressed, getting cleaned up, and then there's the walk. So there's my 4-hour freedom is gone. And you say, well, wait a minute now, that only adds up to 16 hours. That's like 8 hours of sleep. Now, some of y'all can get by on less, but I can't. My sleep has been miserable for the last 2 months. I was getting 5 hours and 4 hours, 5 hours and 6, and it's not been a fun time. This is flooding too. That means if I go down to Van Ness, I think the canal's probably flooded by now. But you can see how everything flows. There's only so much that the storm drains can accept. And this is a good example of why they talk about when there's too much concrete. Like they're proud of the fact that they designed these streets a certain way, but the problem is that even if you design it a certain way, there's only so much that capacity that your storm drain can handle. I feel like this is an erosion control problem. No, there's not even a sidewalk here, it's just mud. Yeah, I know, baby, charge you. I'm gonna charge you. Her voice is on everything. You probably heard her in your earbuds. Her voice might even be in the, well, I don't know, I guess it just depends on what Chinese company she's there. The soft, sweet, like deer-like voice with a slight tang. You can kind of detect a little bit of an Asian accent in there. Charge me. Battery medium. Can't keep up, man. I think that was the bad house. The house that, it's not the house was bad, it's just the concrete on that sidewalk was awful. And I called it in a couple times, and then the next thing you know, they were tearing down the house. I'm not saying I caused that. It was like, I guess I see why it was neglected for so long. But calling in sidewalks is a waste of time, unless it's a business. Now, technically, if you were an unscrupulous person, you can trip and fake an injury on the sidewalk, and then you get you an ambulance chaser who's in on the deal, and you get a pretty handsome payday. And it's like, well, the homeowner can't pay it. Yeah, but you'll get a house, which, you know, real estate is worth a lot. That's one of the weird things about, and I don't know if other countries do the same thing, but they make the homeowner responsible for the sidewalk. I was like, but the sidewalk belongs to the public. So you're telling me I have to spend my money to build something, I don't get a tax break or anything else, and everyone else is going to be using it. I mean, I'll use it, don't get me wrong, but everyone else will be using it more. So the city, I guess someone argued with the city, and the city said, yeah, I guess that's kind of stupid. So the city of Dallas, they got a 50-50 program. And that made sense when, like, replacing the sidewalk was like $500. But construction costs have gone way up, and Everything's insanely expensive. And so now they quoted me $2,800 to fix my sidewalk. And that's paying my half, and then the city pays its half. So that means that they're paying like almost $5,600 to replace a little section of sidewalk with my house, which is crazy. And so I was and then they told me, well, Mr. Young, we're going to be replacing the sidewalks in your neighborhood. You guys were on a bond plan back in 2011, and I don't know why we didn't do it. So theoretically, we're on this bond plan. I believe it when I see it. Yeah, this always floods. Look at that. Damn near. But it all flows that direction. All the streets are flowing down that way. And then wherever they let out at, that area is, I guess, over where, I don't know, if it goes all the way to Northwest Highway, then I can understand why it's flooded. Still messed up, huh? Yeah, I know. Charge you, baby. I know. We're almost done here. 2 minutes. Trying to get this done in an hour, and I screwed that up. So I know it's going to happen. I'm going to be looking at my thing. It's going to say 9,800 steps. And then roll over to the next day. Oh, never mind. Oh no, I just buzzed telling me that it was doing something else. Hey. But this is the whole reason I didn't go to Bachman Lake, was I thought that this storm was supposed to be here in the morning. If I stayed up all day thinking, well, I ain't got nothing else to do, I'm just going to go walk the 4-mile route, my short route. And then here I am. It's almost like the storm saying, "Oh, you thought you could sleep through me, huh? No, buddy, I'm gonna wait for you." I was like, please don't. It's like, no, it's only fair. I was like, we haven't had a chance to be intimate for a while. I was like, all right, rain. You want that. The way this thing camera angle is, it's okay if it's pushed up as far as it can go. Alright. So there's some kind of project they're doing, and they were asking for volunteers for marking storm drains. I don't know what that meant. Alright, let's see what we got here. Like, this one is filling up. That one is just, look at that, man. It's just pouring. That's like White Water Rapids. And this one is also draining. You see, that's what they were talking about, like with the concrete problems with the impermeability. You can see the flow rate, like it can only so much can go through at a time, no matter how well you design your city streets. So it's just pouring in there. And then they got one around the corner here that I called in, and they said we didn't see anything wrong with it, and it floods every time. And I was like, you don't see it, you don't see it, you know, whatever. I think maybe they're right. It might not be clogged, because I was looking at where where the one thing's flowing and the other one's flowing. There's only so much capacity that can go in there, and so they're gonna have to redesign that storm drain. Anyway, I just let them know, hey, every time it rains, it floods that lane. Midnight broadcast, signing off.